of all these provisions. But nevertheless, we as human beings are very, very fortunate to have a very optimistic mindset, and we always look at future with a lot of optimism. So therefore, we feel that this is an opportunity given, God sent, for us to just wake us up from our slumber, because we were playing around with the entire system of the environment and the nature, and maybe we put our lives in a better order, and this time would have given all of us some what you call opportunity to look at it and redesign our lives. So without taking much time on the orbiter, I would straight away come to the topic, which is for today, which Aniket ji has requested me to talk about something whatever I know about
Sir, connectivity issue.
Arrest and appeals in GST. So I asked Aniket ji as to what is. Hello.
Sir, आपकी आवाज हाँ अब आ रही है, बीच में नहीं आ रही थी.
आ रही है? आ रही है? Okay. तो मेरे को रोक दीजिएगा, जब भी आवाज ना आए तो मैं रुक जाऊंगा उधर. So I had a small chat with Aniket ji, and I asked him what is the composition of the audience. He said that most of them are professionals and company secretaries and chartered accountants and finance professionals. And I asked him whether all of them know something about GST. He said may or may not be. So I thought, instead of straight away getting into a serious topic, which is a level ahead, let me start with the basics. It doesn't matter. We all are here to learn. And I would be happy to contribute that in that manner. But I would want to start it from the basics. Whatever the transition from the erstwhile indirect taxation regime to the GST regime.
सर आवाज फिर क्रैक करने लगी.
Dwell upon some. अभी आ रही है? अनिकेत जी?
हाँ आ रही है, क्लियर आ रही है.
Difference between direct and indirect taxes. What is an indirect tax? Taxes under the Constitution of India. Indirect taxes in India before the advent of GST in 2017. We all know GST came into being, introduced on 1st of July 2017. What was the earlier indirect taxation structure? What was the need for GST? What is the constitutional validity of GST law? What exactly is GST? Which are the taxes which got subsumed under GST? What is the tax structure after GST? The salient features of GST. This is the left side of the index is acclimatization, what I call it. If anybody is not having that much focus or knowledge or idea about GST also, just to bring them at par with the next level. So the topic given to me for today's evening, is the relevant provisions for inspection, search, seizure, and arrest. I also will speak about authorization which is required by the officers to inspect the premises. These circumstances in which authorization is to be given by the officers who are authorized to give such authorizations. What all can be confiscated by the officers who are visiting for search and seizure? What are the points to be noted in that context? Can the departmental officers inspect goods which are moving or they're on their way in their conveyances, whether intra-state or interstate? The power to arrest by the commissioner, which is a very important power which has been given. Offences which are cognizable and non-bailable as per the GST provisions. Cognizable and non-cognizable offences and bailable and non-bailable offences, the differentiation. Power to summon persons for various kinds of investigation to the departmental officers, that is GST officers. I also am trying to cover what is adjudication under the GST regime and what are the provisions for appeal and the timelines for that. Hope the flow of presentation is clear to you. Now let us talk about most of the basic things. What is a tax? Tax is as old as civilization. Even in a tribal environment, the tribesmen, the kinmen or the head of the entire tribe. He was to run the entire tribe in whether it was 100 families or 50 families or 200 families. So they were assigned different tasks, and each one of them was collecting wood and doing other things, etc., grazing animals and things like that. But there were some community activities, community development, community funds, take care of the old, take care of the orphans, etc., etc. So therefore, there was a levy, even in the barter system. And basically, it's a financial charge or some other type of levy. So it's a charge on any transaction, and it can be a cess, it can be levy, whatever you call it. Anything which a center of authority or a government charges from the citizens or the subjects is a tax. It is imposed upon a taxpayer by government. In the Indian context, India is a federal state, so we have the central government, the center, and the state governments, and taxes can be imposed and levied and collected by both the governments, depending upon the constitutional provisions. Why are these taxes required? These taxes are required for various public expenditures. Public expenditures like construction of dams, roads, infrastructure, airports, railways, etc., etc., water, sanitation, power, healthcare, education, you name it. Wherever the public expenditure is required, the government is involved. Foreign relations, war, defense, everything is funded by taxes. And it can be of two types, direct and indirect taxes. What are direct taxes? We all know direct taxes are levied on income and profits. These are non-transferable. The incidence, the levy and incidence, both is on the same person. The most common example of a direct tax is income tax, whether it is on house property, business or profession, capital gains, whatever it may be. The levy is on the same person, effect is also on the same person, incidence also on the same person, and he cannot transfer it. He has to bear it, he has to suffer the tax. So that is a direct tax. What are indirect taxes then? Indirect taxes are taxes not on profits or income, but on goods and services. Any transactions related to goods or services are indirect taxes. These taxes are transferable, and the liability to pay taxes can be shifted to consumers. In the first instance, it is levied on a manufacturer or a trader or a service provider or such kind of a person who is dealing in goods or services. So he is supposed to take registration, pay taxes, etc. But then once that is paid, he can easily shift it to the next level, which is the consumers, by way of collecting it as a part of the price. So if it's a sale of goods, apart from the sale price, he'll also collect the taxes on the sale, right? So now you all know that there's no concept of sale, there's no concept of manufacture, there's no concept of import, etc. We'll see all that in the next slide. At this stage, if you have any questions, you're most welcome, because I would rather wanted to make it an interactive session, right? If something is
sir, there is a question being asked. What is the difference between assessment and adjudication, please?
Basically, whenever a tax is to be collected, direct or indirect, right? Mostly, since the population is large, the system of collection of taxes is based on self-assessment. What is assessment? Assessment is computation of tax. For example, if you are a trader, so you are trading day in and day out. You're purchasing, selling, purchase returns, everything is happening. So all the data is collected by you, and in a monthly basis or a periodic basis, you're filing returns, your self-assessment tax. And that returns are checked by the departmental officers, and that is called assessment. And if they're satisfied, they'll close the assessment. So that process of determination of tax and payment of tax and collection of tax, all that is coming under assessment. Assessment means determine what is the tax. So normally it is self-assessment by the assessment. हाँ जी, अभी आ रही है आवाज? Hello.
वापस आने लगी सर, लास्ट लाइन फिर से बोलना पड़ेगा.
What I am saying is, assessment is the method of determination of tax by the SSC and checking of that assessment, tax calculation, the tax officers. That's the concept of broadly the assessment. What is adjudication? Adjudication is always a dispute. If there's any dispute relating to payment of tax, payability of tax, whether a particular transaction is taxable or not, exemption, classification, input tax credit, any dispute which the department has in mind, it starts with a show cause notice. And once a show cause notice is received, the SSE is supposed to reply to the show cause notice, and there's a full system of natural justice which is given to him. He can appear and convince the officer that that levy or that exposure is not maintainable. So that part of it is called adjudication. So therefore, adjudication starts with a show cause notice and ends with a order in original. Am I clear?
Clear, sir.
I'm moving ahead then.
Yeah, please.
What is an indirect tax? Indirect tax is levied on goods and services. So which were the different kinds of indirect taxes we have seen in our lifetimes? These are customs duties on imports that still remains in the form of basic customs duty. Earlier, before 2017, we saw excise duty on manufacture. We saw sales tax, both VAT and CST. VAT on local sales within a state and CST on interstate sales. And service tax introduced in 1994, and eventually 110 services were covered by 2017, which was on different services. So in all these kinds of taxes, the levy is on somebody in the first instance, and that somebody shifts that incidence to somebody else who is a customer in the second instance. So therefore, it's called an indirect tax. Taxes and the constitution, because any tax which is levied by a particular government, it has to be backed by the constitutional provisions. The Indian constitution has different lists, right? And the tax policy plays a major role in the Indian economy through its impact on efficiency and equity. So the taxes have to be equitable. The tax infrastructure administration has to be efficient, etc., etc. But on which transaction, what tax can be levied, it is answered by the constitution. So therefore, you cannot stand up and say that I'll start taxing this transaction from tomorrow morning. First of all, any state government or the union government has to look at what is the transaction, what is the constitutional mandate to collect that tax. A good tax system includes the issue of income distribution and supports the government. So therefore, how the income is to be distributed, how it is to be collected from different sources, and how it is to be supporting the government in running the governments, both central and state. Any good tax system should have that thing in mind. Article 246 and recently introduced Article 246 capital A of the Indian Constitution distributes legislative powers including taxation between the Parliament of India and the state legislatures. For example, prior to introduction of GST, local sales tax or VAT could be on intra-state transactions, that is transactions within the same state, could be done only by the state legislature. Central government had no authority to levy that. Similarly, any interstate movement of goods, the taxes can be levied by the central government only. That was also a constitutional mandate. Previously, service tax could be levied only by the union government because the constitution provided for that. Previously, excise duty could be levied only by central government. That was also constitutional. So the constitutional mandate is coming from Schedule 7, which enumerates the subject matters on which the parliament and the states have the powers to make laws in 3 different lists. So one list is union list, which is also called list 1. List 2 is state list. List 3 is concurrent list. So all matters of administration, taxation, governance, etc. are covered under these lists. So therefore, for example, your law and order is in the state list, right? Similarly, there are certain things which are in the concurrent list, certain things in the union list. If something is in union list, only union parliament can legislate on that. If something is in the state list, only state legislature can legislate on that. And the concurrent list, both of them can legislate. And in India, some of the states have got a bicameral system also, where you have the assembly as also the council, like Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So therefore, that is again a different constitutional debate. So let's not transgress or digress from that. So this is how taxes and constitution are linked up. No taxation is possible without constitutional mandate. That is a grand norm. That is very, very important. So if a tax is there, you can safely assume that there is some constitutional mandate for imposition and collection of the tax, either by the central government or the state government, through laws passed by union legislature and state legislature. Now, what were the indirect taxes in India before GST was introduced, which is on 1st July 2017? Central excise, which is on manufacture, customs, entertainment tax, service tax, sales tax, luxury tax. These are some of the important indirect taxes which were there before GST was introduced. What was the earlier indirect taxation structure? Under the earlier indirect tax structure of India, various taxable events were present for different levies depending upon the nature of tax. The four major constituents of earlier indirect tax structure and taxable events thereof can be described as under. For central excise duty, the taxable event was manufacture or deemed manufacture. It means you were a particular factory owner or a manufacturer could be levied with excise duty only the taxable event occurs.
Sir,
What is the taxable event? Manufacture. Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yeah. So later on, they also introduced, by way of a legal fiction, the concept of deemed manufacture. Manufacture means actual transformation of raw materials from the final goods with a different name, character, and use, right? So therefore, if something has got a different name, character, and use after transformation, after process, after getting through a factory, then it is manufacture. If it is not changing, for example, earlier big rims of paper were manufactured by one factory. It was sent as raw material to the other factory. The other factory is cutting the bigger rims into smaller rims. The courts held that, look, earlier also it was paper rim and now also it's paper rim. There were only size differences. So there's no question of manufacture. So the parliament, what they did, they amended the Central Excise Act and introduced the concept of deemed manufacture and said that we can call a man a woman or a woman a man. For example, even packing activity, we can call it manufacture. Even labeling activity, we can manufacture. Cutting activity, manufacture. So therefore, excise duty was levied on both real manufacturers, deemed manufacturers. So what was the entry in the earlier in the constitutional provision, Schedule 7, entry number 84 of List 1 was germane for excise duty. Then service tax, the taxable event was provision of service. The moment X provides service to Y, whatever taxable service, that should be defined under the definition of taxable service. If you're falling under taxable service, you are leviable to service tax. What was the entry? Entry number, residual entry number 97 of List 1. This was introduced with effect from 1994. Then sales tax, VAT, CST. This is on sale. Taxable event was on sale. If there was donation, if you just hand over, if you gift it, there's no tax. There's no sales tax. For sales tax, sale has to occur. So they also brought in the concept of deemed sales that we don't need to discuss today. So entry number 52 of List 2 was for VAT, and entry number 92A of List 1 was for CST. That is central sales tax. Entry tax and entertainment tax, the taxable event was entertainment and entry of goods from one state to the other state. Entry number 52 and 62 of List 1. Only central government could levy, right? So this is the structure. What was the need for GST? So therefore, there were multiple statutes under the earlier law. For every tax which we were referring to in the earlier slides, there was separate law, separate act, separate rules, separate forms, separate department officer, separate inspector, separate superintendent. So you are dealing, if you're a manufacturer, you're dealing with 10 departments for all your indirect taxation needs. Kabhi entertainment department, kabhi service tax department, kabhi excise department, sometimes sales tax department, local, that is VAT department, sometimes CST department. So therefore you were running from pillar to post. So there were multiple statutes in the earlier law, and the statutes are not talking. So therefore too much of confusion was there. Improper set-off system. You know, value-added concept is that you pay tax only on the value added. You don't pay tax on tax. You can't bear cascading effect. So therefore, initially, pro forma credit was introduced in 1976. In 1986, ModVat was introduced. In 2000, SENVAT was introduced. And then in 2017, input tax credit was introduced. But earlier, if you are operating under the excise regime, whatever sales tax you're paying, that sales tax was not available to you as credit. You were ending up paying excise duty on sales tax also, on other taxes also, on entry tax also, right? So therefore, there was an improper set-off system which led to the products being very, very expensive, you being paying tax on tax. There was a huge cascading effect. So world over, it was India was a laughing stock that we have a single VAT and we don't pay tax on tax. What are you doing? I mean, there's 70 years after independence also, you are paying tax on tax and your public is suffering. So there was an improper set of system. Then structure was complex, which I just described why it was complex. Varied tax rates. So some states, some rates, some other states, other rates. Even the manufactured items, even the same list, central excise tariff, different products will have different rates. So there's no parity. There was no uniformity. So varied tax rates were there. Difficulty in administration due to multiple departments. So they were coming in the way of each other, and there was no information sharing. Sometimes it was happening, sometimes it was not happening. People could manage, etc. And honest taxpayers were suffering. Those who were not honest were taking advantage of the system. So there was difficulty in administration of tax in multiple departments. Then there was also a need to remove the cascading effect of taxes, that is tax on tax. So there was a need, an apparent need, a very urgent need, a very long time need for introduction of GST. So which is very, very clear from this slide. Constitutional, how does the GST Act made constitutionally valid? GST bill was passed by the Rajya Sabha on 3rd August 2016. You know how the parliamentary system works. So upper house, lower house, both have to pass the bill. GST bill was passed by the Lok Sabha on 8th August 2016. And then GST bill was notified as Constitution 101st Amendment introduced and amended by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. So once from the bill, it became an act. Am I audible for you all? Aniket ji?
Audible, sir.
Yeah. So what is GST? The proof of the eating lies in the pudding itself. GST means, G means goods, S means services, T means tax. So it's as simple as that. A tax on goods and services. Article 366, 12A of the Constitution defines GST. It defines it to mean any tax. It means any tax on supply of goods or services, or both. Sometimes in works contracts, etc., you supply goods and services both in the same transaction, right? Except tax on supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So liquor they kept aside. They said GST is not applicable to alcoholic liquor, but any other supply of goods or services will attract GST, right? As against manufacture, as against sale, as against various other services, provision of services, etc. They brought in one concept, which is of supply. Supply can be of goods, supply can be of services, supply can be a combination of goods and services. So a comprehensive indirect tax levy on manufacture, sale and consumption of goods as well as services at national level, right? So that is what is GST is. So therefore it is a new wine, old wine in a new bottle. So earlier there were 10 different taxes. All of them have been bottled in a single wine bottle now today. And they've given it a name, GST. And instead of all different taxable events, now only one taxable event, which is supply, right? So what are the taxes which got subsumed under GST? Under central taxes, excise duty, service tax, central sales tax, countervailing and special additional duty. All these got subsumed under GST. Under state, VAT, that is value-added tax, entry tax, entertainment tax, and luxury tax. All these became GST. So what is the tax structure after GST? On intrastate transactions, that is transactions which are happening within the same state. For example, if you are all in Delhi and there is a trader who is selling his goods in Delhi and the purchaser is also purchasing goods in Delhi, that is called an intrastate transaction. So on such intrastate transaction, you have two separate levies which are being levied of GST. There's one CGST, one SGST. CGST would go to central government, SGST or UTGST. For union territories, it is called UTGST, goes to the union territory. As against that, any transaction which is interstate, that is between two different states, that is one trader is in Delhi, the other one is in Gurgaon. So seller sells goods from Delhi to Gurgaon. So that becomes an interstate transaction. On such interstate transaction, what is levied is something called IGST, Integrated Goods and Services Tax. It is nothing. There's no, earth-shaking rocket science in it. IGST is a summation of CGST and SGST, right? So both put together, central government collects it and later on distributes to the states depending upon the consumption. Which state the goods ultimately get destined to or consumed in, right? Any doubt, any question right now, till now? I'm moving ahead. What are the salient features of GST? It is applicable on both goods and services. GST is a destination-based consumption tax as against the previous concept of origin-based tax. Earlier sales tax, what is happening? Whichever state the goods are originating in, that state was taking the revenue, and there was therefore a lot of rush to attract industry, attract business persons to come to the state and establish shops and factories, etc. Because it's a origin-based taxation. But as against that, internationally, VAT and GST are destination-based consumption tax. So the taxes transferred to the state, which ultimately consumes it, or where the goods are destined to. So if a particular transaction has got 10 legs, that is A, B, C, D, etc., etc., and the goods keep moving from one state to the other state, ultimately the end state, wherever the goods are reaching, that state will get the revenue benefit, right? So therefore, it's a path-breaking change. The entire paradigm of taxation got shifted, and that is the reason why many states started agitating. So therefore, they had to bring in the compensation mechanism and all those things, because some states had to suffer in the entire changeover. They said that how do we? So 5 years, government said that no, we'll give you parity. We'll replenish your tax loss if there is any, because the entire concept is changing. Earlier you were taking tax, now you have to shift the tax to the other state. So we'll replenish that, and later on, after 5 years, the entire thing will get set right. Full tax rate is available on inputs. This is another selling feature. There's no partial or modified system. GST is a dual taxation where central and state simultaneously levy taxes on a common base. The valuation is the same, the value is the same, and both center and states levy on the same value. IGST is levied on interstate supplies, including stock transfers. So therefore, there is no concept of lack of consideration, etc. Even if it's a stock transfer, earlier, in case of CST, against Form F, there was no tax payable on stock transfers. But that all has gone now out of the window. Now, stock transfers also attract tax. So even if you have your own office, you're transferring the goods to your warehouse, you have to jolly well pay taxes on the valuation which is there in the Section 15. Both CGST and SGST are levied in the same tax base or value throughout the supply chain. IGST is collected by the center, so the credit chain is not disrupted. So therefore, they say, as far as IGST is concerned, I'll collect and I'll distribute it later on. Like a stock exchange mechanism, it works. There's a complex neural network which is working in the GSTN network, wherein settlement is happening on day-to-day basis between center and the states. Import of goods or services is treated as intrastate supplies and subject to IGST in addition to BCD. So therefore, earlier also basic custom duty was being imposed on imports into India. Apart from that, CBT was being applied to compensate equalize for excise duty. Instead of CVD and FCID, now IGST is applicable. And IGST is nothing but whatever the GST rate is, that is CGST plus SGST. Am I clear? Any doubt, please ask. I'm moving ahead. So now we come to the topic of the evening: inspection, search, seizure, and arrest. And I also am covering appeal provisions. So can anybody tell me what is the need for all these things in a single sentence? Anybody from the audience? Okay, should I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So therefore, when you go on the path of commercial transactions, whether it is manufacture, whether it is trading, whether it is services, etc., etc., there are different kinds of people who are there in the value chain, in the entire supply chain. So some of them may be ethical, some of them may be unethical, right? There may be revenue leak for the government. So government cannot tolerate revenue leak. So how to detect and catch hold of such troublemakers? It is only through mechanisms with these are all sticks which are available to the departmental officers to beat the persons who are unethical, to inspect their premises, to search their premises, to seize the goods, to arrest the people, etc., whoever are the wrongdoers. So these are all the bullets which the government has got in terms of GST Act to recover the taxes which were unfairly not paid by the SSCs to the government, whether state government or central government, depending upon the transaction. So what are the relevant provisions for this? Section 67 of the CGST Act, I'm only taking up CGST Act for today's discussion. Gives the power of inspection, search and seizure. So any inspection, any search, any seizure, any departmental officer who comes and wants to search you, wants to inspect your premises, wants to seize something, the natural question which you ask is, where is your power? So the power is given by the Constitution to CGST Act. The Parliament in Section 67 has given that power of inspection, search and seizure to the officers. So if you read Section 67, it becomes very clear that those officers in those situations, circumstances, with those safeguards can do these things. Section 68 gives the power for inspection of goods in movement. You know, a lot of goods need to be moved. Logistics is there. It can move through trains, trucks, waterways, aircrafts, whatever. So while the goods are in transit, the departmental officers can stop them and inspect the goods in movement. Right? You all know the e-way bill and all those things. The inspection on while the goods are in movement is covered under Section 68. So if some officer stops a truck and asks him, show me, I want to inspect it, the truck owner may ask, where is your power from? So he'll say, I am empowered under Section 68, read with these documents, look at these documents, this is my iCard, and this is the whatever I got the permission. So this Section 68 deals with inspection of goods in movement. Section 69 gives the power to arrest, because if there is some kind of a person who is causing revenue loss to the department of large proportions, right? And it is also fraudulent, and there are certain other conditions which are there, and there is cheating against the revenue, then the commissioner has been given the power to arrest. Prior to this, prior to GST, the power was with principal commissioner only. He can only authorize. Now, every commissioner is authorized to arrest, get the persons arrested in certain circumstances. We'll deal with those circumstances in the next slides. Section 70 is power to summon persons to give evidence and produce documents. So whenever there is such investigation which is happening, the department needs to collect evidence. For that evidence, departmental officers can, the authorized officers can issue you summons and ask you to come to their premises at some point of time at 11 o'clock on Monday morning or whatever date they'll give, and they can ask you questions. That is in the form of statements and also in the form of documents they ask. So through letters also you can submit, you can carry those letters also, you can carry the documents also. All these things are covered under Section 70. So 70 gives the power to the departmental officers to summon persons, to give evidence and produce documents. Section 77 gives departmental officers to access the business premises. So you may see sometimes there's a raid by the GST department. That is actually access to business premises, Section 71. So Section 72 is officers to assist proper officer. So who are the officers who can assist the proper officer is given in Section 72. So Section 67 to 72 talks about these provisions which we were discussing, we will discuss today evening. So there's something very important, which is authorization in writing to inspect. The proper officer having reasons to believe. What is this belief? His belief is with regard to tax evasion. May authorize in writing any officer, right? It has to be in writing. So therefore, the proper officer has to give an authorization in writing to an officer to inspect, right? What all he can inspect? The inspector or the team which is coming to inspect the premises, it can inspect any place of business of taxable person. So anybody who is a registered taxable person, if you have 10 business premises, warehouses, shops, offices, so they can get access to all those places, of course, subject to authorization. The persons engaged in the business of transporting goods, right? So therefore, the officers can also inspect the transporters, their offices, and such establishments, because transporters play a humongous role in the entire logistics of movement of goods from one place to other place, because the entire trade and commerce, you know, is based on logistics. The owner or the operator of warehouse or godown, because you can't store everything in your factory, everything in your office. So you need warehouses, godowns, your own or hired or leased. So therefore, the departmental officers can, subject to proper authorization, go and inspect those warehouses and godowns or any other place. Because if some goods which are the subject goods or documents are, if they feel that they're kept somewhere in the residence of the managing director or some director or somebody else's friend's place or whatever, they have intelligence to that effect, any other place also can be inspected, right? So authorization in writing to inspect is required, and inspection can be done of all these premises. What are the circumstances in which authorization is given by the proper officer? These are the cases where such authorization can be given. Suppress any transaction of supply. There is a supply of goods or services, or goods and services both happen, but that is suppressed. It is not coming in the returns. It is not coming in the records. It has happened. The goods have been sent from Chavdi Bazaar to Sadar Bazaar, but no document has moved. Nothing is, the tax has not been paid. It has been suppressed. So in those circumstances, the proper officer can give authorization for inspection. Suppressed stock of goods in hand. You have 100 table fans manufactured today, but you are showing in your records only 50. So suppression is happened of stock of goods either with a trader or a manufacturer. So in case of suppression also of goods in the records, the authorization can be given for inspection. Claiming excess input tax credit. You are eligible for input tax credit of 100 rupees only, depending upon what you have received and what documents you have. But you have taken 200 rupees input tax credit by either producing documents or taking help of somebody, etc., by defrauding the revenue authorities. Then, if you have claimed excess input tax credit and the department has got that intelligence, it can give authorization. The authorized officer can give authorization for inspection. Or any contravention of any provision of the act or rules to evade tax. For example, you have established a factory where you are having 50 workers and daily you are producing aluminum wires of 100 kilo every day, and the value is much more than 40 lakhs in the year, and the department comes to know of it through intelligence. Then you have contravened many provisions of the act and the rules by not taking registration, by not filing returns, by not doing so many things, by not maintaining records, etc., etc., etc. So you hordes of provisions are compromised by you. In such case of compromise of provisions also, inspection can be done by the departmental officers. What all can be confiscated by the departmental officers? Goods, prior approval required if goods not practicable to seize and remove is required, right? So therefore, if you want to confiscate, you can confiscate goods, you can confiscate books of accounts also, and the books of accounts shall be retained only for examination. You cannot keep the books of accounts for life and without any purpose, right? Only for examination you can confiscate the books of accounts. Any other document or thing which proper officer may deem fit. It is called case property. So therefore, all goods, all books of accounts or any other document or thing can be confiscated by the proper officer, subject to all those authorizations. Okay, I'm moving on to the next slide.
सर इसमें एक क्वेश्चन मेरा था कि अगर कहीं पे कोई रेड है, जीएसटी की रेड पड़ रही है और वहां पे कोई थर्ड पार्टी सॉफ्टवेयर लगा हुआ है, तो क्या वो थर्ड पार्टी सॉफ्टवेयर क्लोनिंग के लिए ये लोग मांग सकते हैं या नहीं मांग सकते?
बिल्कुल मांग सकते हैं,
बट वो उसका प्रोप्राइटरी सॉफ्टवेयर है, वो आईपीआर
सरकारी काम है, एविजन का है, तो आपका जब भी आप एग्रीमेंट करेंगे थर्ड पार्टी वेंडर से, आप ये जरूर डालेंगे उसमें एस्केप क्लॉज कि इफ इट इज गिवन as per directions of some government authority, that is not coming under disclosure, non-disclosure.
Okay.
That is a commercial contractual issue, but as a state, they have the right. Okay. So points to be noted. If it is not practicable to seize, right? Something is so impracticable to seize. What are the, whatever interesting points I could cull out, I'm culling out. Where it is not practicable to seize any such goods, maybe it is huge, it's a transformer, it's 100 ton, where will the department seize? The proper officer or any officer authorized by him may serve on the owner or the custodian of the goods in order that he shall not remove, part with, or otherwise deal with the goods except the previous permission of such officer. So therefore it is called symbolic seizure, right? So if it's a huge machinery or some items, if there are about 10,000 files, department cannot carry all those files. They'll say, I'm seizing it here itself, but you will be the custodian. You will keep it in your custody, but you cannot remove it without my permission. So that's called symbolic seizure. So if it is not practicable to seize, department can do that. Can be retained as long as necessary. The documents or books or things so seized shall be retained by such officer only for so long as may be necessary for the examination and for any inquiry or proceedings under this act. So therefore, अगर inquiry नहीं हो रही, कोई proceedings नहीं हो रहे, कोई काम नहीं कर रहे उसका, तो department cannot retain it. So if still they are retaining it, you have to write to the department. If still they are not releasing it, you have to come to us. We can help you make a legal strategy to get back your documents and your goods, etc. Right? So therefore, all the seized things can be retained only so long as they are needed for that inquiry, investigation, proceeding, etc. Seized things not laid upon to be returned within 30 days of notice issued. The documents, books, or things seized or any other document, books or things produced by a taxable person or any other person which has not been relied upon for the issue of show cause notice under this act or the rules made thereunder will be returned to such person within a period not exceeding 30 days of issues of the said notice. Right? Notice issue करने के 30 days के अंदर हमें जो भी seized documents हैं हमको वापस कर दो भैया, वापस करना ही पड़ेगा. Right? Because you need to make your defense, you need to run your business continuously. So therefore, department cannot sit over your financial accounts, purchase accounts, employees accounts, job workers accounts. इनका क्या होता है कि जब आते हैं रेड करने के तो पूरा मतलब होलसेल में सब कुछ ले जाते हैं, वो कंप्यूटर्स भी ले जाते हैं, सॉफ्ट डॉक्यूमेंट्स ले जाते हैं, हार्ड डॉक्यूमेंट्स ले जाते हैं, सब कुछ ले जाते हैं. So therefore, these are the legal points which you know, then you can confront the officer concerned so that he is on the back foot. Otherwise, क्या करते हैं जिसको law नहीं आता तो डंडा घुमाते हैं वो. So therefore, you need to be aware of the legal provisions so that you know you can protect the interests of your companies. If you're the CFO or the company secretary or any kind of officer in your respective organizations, you can use this because knowledge is power. Because if you have knowledge and if you give that kind of advice to the management, board of directors, etc., then you are a very valuable resource there for the company. Break open any almirah, electronic device, box, etc. You can search. The authorized officer can force open door of any premises and break open any almirah, box, electronic devices, etc., in which he suspects that any goods, accounts, or documents are concealed and access to which is denied. The authorized officer can also seal the premises with the access is denied. So ये सब कर सकता है. And these words are used in the law. Break open the almirah, box, electronic device, etc. So we have picked it up from the law itself. Entitled to have copies of these documents. You as an SSC, you are entitled to this. Photocopies of documents can be taken by the person from whose custody documents are seized. So हम photocopy मांग सकते हैं. Except when making of copies or taking of extract shall not be prejudicially affect the investigation. Unless कोई photocopy करने से investigation को prejudicial effect होगा, कमिश्नर सोचते हैं कि नहीं अगर इनको वापस दे दिया तो और एवेजन बढ़ेगा और डिपार्टमेंट का और नुकसान होगा, तो वो स्पेशल सर्कमस्टेंसेस को छोड़ के बाकी सब सर्कमस्टेंसेस में कॉपीज देना पड़ेगा सीज डॉक्यूमेंट्स का. देन प्रोविजनल रिलीज ऑफ गुड्स. Provisional release of seized goods upon execution of bond and furnishing of sufficient security or any payment of applicable tax, interest and penalty. So provisional release भी possible है. तो उसके लिए provisions हैं. You have to apply for that and you can get the goods or documents or whatever provisionally released on payment of giving a bond or by sufficient security to the department कि आप भाग नहीं जाओगे. Seized good to be returned if notice not issued within a period of 6 months. आपके goods जब्त कर लिए, कॉन्फिस्केट सीज कर लिए और इन ट्रांजिट और फैक्ट्री में और किसी और प्रेमिसेस में और वेयरहाउस में. उसके बाद 6 महीने तक शो कॉज नोटिस नहीं दिया डिपार्टमेंट ने, नहीं दिया तो उसके बाद तो उनको वापस करना पड़ेगा गुड्स. या तो शो कॉज नोटिस दो और या तो रिलीज करो. गुड्स शैल बी रिटर्न टू द पर्सन फ्रॉम हुज पोजीशन दे वर सीज्ड. Period of 6 months can be extended on justifiable grounds up to a maximum period of 6 months. A proper officer, that is principal commissioner or commissioner. Provided the period of 6 months can be further extended by a period of 6 months. So वो permission लेके 6 महीने को 1 साल तक वो रख सकते हैं अपने पास. Inventory of seized goods. The seizing officer shall make an inventory of seized goods. तो पंचनामा बोलते हैं इसको. पंचनामा में सब कुछ आता है कि serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 हमने क्या क्या सीज किया है उसका इन्वेंटरी बनाना पड़ेगा और 50 को बुला के वो उस पे साइन कराते हैं ताकि वो इंडिपेंडेंस मेंटेन कर सके. Applicability of Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. All provisions of the CRPC 1973 in relation to search and seizure will be applicable mutatis mutandis. Wherever the word magistrate is mentioned in the code, it will be replaced with the word commissioner. So therefore, ये search and seizure के लिए commissioner को magistrate के power दे रखे हैं. मोटा-मोटा बात ये है. Okay. Inspection of goods in movement. जब ट्रक में, एयरक्राफ्ट में, शिप में, ट्रेन में, बोगी में, वैगन्स में goods मूव कर रहे हैं तो इंस्पेक्शन कर सकता है गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स, जीएसटी ऑफिसर्स. तो उसके लिए ये स्लाइड है. Government may require the person in charge of a conveyance, which is airline company, transport company, railway company, whatever, carrying any consignment of goods to carry with him such documents as may be prescribed, and also to carry with him such devices in such manner as may be prescribed in this behalf. So e-way bill जो है ये ऐसा डॉक्यूमेंट है. और इसके बाद अगर डिपार्टमेंट बोलता है, गवर्नमेंट बोलता है कि हम लॉ अमेंड कर रहे हैं, जीपीएस इंस्ट्रूमेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है जिसमें मैप पूरा आएगा कहां से निकला है, कहां गया और कहां रुका है. राइट. अगर वो डिवाइस मेंटेन्ड है वो गाड़ी में या ट्रक में वो डिवाइस ही मांग सकता है डिपार्टमेंट अमेंड करने के बाद. Where any conveyance referred to in subsection 1 is intercepted with the proper officer inspector at any place, he may require the person in charge of said conveyance, driver या जो भी है, to produce the officer documents and devices verification, the said person shall be liable to produce the documents and invoices and also allow inspection of the goods. So therefore, आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि मैं सरदार जर्नैल सिंह हूँ, मैं दूंगा नहीं, मैं ट्रक में चला रहा हूँ, मैं नहीं दूंगा, दिखाऊंगा. So the law says that if an inspector comes, he has to show कि ये goods है, ये documents हैं, साहब ये है. पूरा मतलब transparent रहना पड़ेगा. You can't refuse that inspection because revenue interest is involved in it. Okay, I'm moving on to the next slide. Now, power to arrest by the commissioner. Commissioner may by order authorize any officer of central excise to arrest such persons who committed specified offences for which arrest can be made where the amount involved is more than 2 crores. 2 crore से कम का अगर अमाउंट होता है तो अरेस्ट के प्रोविजन इन्वोक नहीं होते, राइट? और किस किस सिचुएशन में अरेस्ट कर सकते हैं वो अभी हम करेंगे. Such specified offences are cognizable and non-bailable in case the amount involved is more than 5 crores. Otherwise, it will be considered as non-cognizable and bailable. अगर 5 करोड़ से कम का अमाउंट इन्वॉल्व है तो डिपार्टमेंट ही आपको बेल दे सकता है, उसको कोई वारंट की जरूरत नहीं है कोर्ट से, राइट? अगर 5 करोड़ से ज्यादा का है तो बेल भी आपका कोई उसके लिए वारंट भी चाहिए होगा, और बेल के लिए यू नीड टू वारंट भी नहीं चाहिए होगा, और बेल के लिए आपको मजिस्ट्रेट के पास जाना पड़ेगा 24 घंटे के अंदर. Where a person is arrested for any specified offences, the officer authorized to arrest the person shall inform such person of the grounds of arrest and produce him before the magistrate within 24 hours. So therefore, ये है जो मोटा offence होता है 5 करोड़ का, उसके लिए. Where a person is arrested for non-cognizable and bailable offences, the officer carrying out the arrest can grant him bail in accordance with section 436 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. So serious offences, less serious offences जो है amount involved के basis पे इन्होंने determine कर लिया है GST के अंदर. So offences which are cognizable and non-bailable as per the GST provisions. Supply of any जिसके लिए बिना वारंट के अरेस्ट कर सकते हैं और आपको मजिस्ट्रेट के पास जाके बेल लेना पड़ेगा, उस ऑफेंसेस में कौन कौन से ऑफेंसेस आते हैं उसके लिए ये देखिए. सप्लाई ऑफ एनी गुड्स और सर्विसेज और बोथ विदाउट इश्यूइंग ऑफ एनी इनवॉइस इन वायलेशन ऑफ द प्रोविजंस ऑफ द एक्ट और द रूल्स मेड देयरअंडर विद इंटेंशन टू एवेड टैक्स. इसको बोलते हैं क्लैंडरस्टाइन रिमूवल. आपने इनवॉइस बनाया नहीं, गुड्स भी दे रहे हो, सप्लाई सर्विस भी दे रहे हो, और कैश में ट्रांजैक्शन कर रहे हो, जैसे मर्जी कर रहे हो, गोलमोल कर रहे हो, सप्लाई कर रहे हो, कोई इनवॉइस नहीं हो रहा है, तो वो उसमें कवर्ड होगा. इश्यू ऑफ एनी इनवॉइस और बिल विदाउट सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, ये रिवर्स है. इनवॉइस इश्यू कर दिया, गुड्स नहीं दे रहे हो, इनवॉइस इश्यू कर दिया, सर्विसेज नहीं दे रहे हो, राइट? और इससे क्या कर रहे हो आप, अगले को इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट लेने में मजबूर कर रहे हो. अगला ले रहा है, क्रेडिट ले रहा है, उसके पास गुड्स भी नहीं पहुंचे, सर्विसेज भी नहीं पहुंचे, वो क्रेडिट ले रहा है, आप इश्यू कर रहे हो इनवॉइस, तो वो भी इसमें कवर्ड है. Availment of input tax credit using such invoice or bill referred. या एक तो आप इश्यू कर रहे हो, बिल इश्यू करने वाले भी अरेस्ट हो सकता है, और जो क्रेडिट ले रहा है बिना गुड्स को रिसीव किए, बिना सर्विसेज को रिसीव किए, वो भी अरेस्ट हो सकता है. Then fourth is collection of any amount as tax and failure to pay the same to the government beyond a period of 3 months from the date on which such payment becomes due. तो जिस दिन आपका ड्यू डेट था उससे 3 महीने के अंदर अंदर तक तो बोलते चलो तुम्हारी कैश फ्लो सिचुएशन खराब है तो 3 महीने का ग्रेस पीरियड दे रहा हूँ, 3 महीने के बाद भी अगर आपने नहीं दिया तो मैं अरेस्ट कर लूंगा, बिकॉज आपने टैक्स बोल के कोई भी अमाउंट कलेक्ट किया हो किसी से भी, दैट हैज टू बी डिपॉजिटेड विद द गवर्नमेंट. यू डोंट हैव एनी राइट व्हाटसएवर टू रिटेन विद यू योरसेल्फ. So therefore it's a state's money, so they're trustee, so you ought to have deposited it within time, and we also give you 3 more months. Now you don't have any other option but to go and sit in the jail, right? ये arrest provisions हैं which are cognizable and non-bailable. Now cognizable and non-cognizable offenses and bailable and non-bailable offenses, इसका distinction क्या है? A cognizable offense is a criminal offense in which accused can be arrested without court issued warrant. So court से कोई warrant की जरूरत नहीं है. Cognizable offense मतलब कोई भी serious offense होता है तो वो कोई warrant के बिना arrest कर लेंगे आप, right? Non-cognizable offense is an offense in which arrest is not possible without express permission or directions of the court. Non-cognizable में आपको warrant लेके आना पड़ेगा कोर्ट से. Bailable offenses are those offenses which are where accused shall be offered to be released on suitable bail. वहाँ पे ऑफिसर खुद ही बेल देना पड़ेगा उसको, जो भी बेल बॉन्ड लेके. But non-bailable offenses are those offenses in which accused shall not be automatically entitled to be released on bail. उसको मजिस्ट्रेट के पास ले जाएंगे, मजिस्ट्रेट के पास जब वो खड़ा होगा, मजिस्ट्रेट का अगर मन करे, उनको लगे कि उतना सीरियस नहीं है, he wants to give a bail, he can give a bail. Otherwise bail डिपार्टमेंट में बेल नहीं मिलेगी उसको. Okay. Power to summon persons, because कई बारी क्या होता है, when we are in our organizations, summons keep coming in from different departments. इनकम टैक्स से भी आता है, पहले भी एक्साइज वगैरह में भी आता था, जीएसटी में भी आएगा आगे जाके समन्स. तो सीजीएसटी और एसजीएसटी ऑफिसर, which is a normally a superintendent, are authorized to summon a person to present himself before the officer issuing the summon to give evidence or to produce a document or any other thing in any inquiry which an officer is making. तो या तो डॉक्यूमेंट्स मांगेगा आपसे, आपकी स्टेटमेंट मांगेगा, या कुछ और भी पूछेगा जब कोई इंक्वायरी या इन्वेस्टिगेशन चल रही हो. सो वो सब पावर ऑफ समन है with the departmental officer. A summon to produce documents or other things maybe for the production of certain specified documents or things, or the production of all documents or things of certain description in the possession or under the control of the person summoned. या तो वो परचेज बुक मांग सकता है, या तो सेल बुक मांग सकता है, या तो इनपुट टैक्स रजिस्टर मांग सकता है, या तो पूरा एक्सेस मांग सकता है, या तो सीडी मांग सकता है, कुछ भी मांग सकता है, सब मांग सकता है, कम मांग सकता है, जो भी है. इसका मतलब है कि the departmental officer is investigating or inquiring can ask from you anything. The person who is issued a summon is legally bound to attend either in person or by an authorized representative as such. ऑफिसर में डायरेक्ट जैसे वो चाहेगा ऑफिसर उस तरह से आप कर सकते हो, राइट. ऑथराइज उसमें लिखेगा कि ऑथराइज पर्सन भी भेज सकते हो, आपके एमडी के नाम पे देगा, बोलेगा ऑथराइज पर्सन को भेजो, राइट. A person is issued a summon is legally bound to attend either in person or as such may direct. It is to be noted that officer has the discretion to summon a person himself or to allow him to represent an authorized representative. आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि मैं नहीं आऊंगा, मैं एमडी हूं, मैं किसी को भेजूंगा. वो ऑफिसर का डिस्क्रिप्शन है, राइट, कि वो आप या तो आपको बुलाए या तो आपको बोले कि या तो आप आइए या तो आप किसी को ऑथराइज कर दीजिए. दैट इज देयर डिस्क्रिप्शन. Section 193 of Indian Penal Code contains penal provisions for giving false evidence under summons. तो वो बोरो किए गए प्रोविजंस में अगर कोई गलत इंफॉर्मेशन देते हैं, गलत स्टेटमेंट देते हैं, तो आपको पनिशमेंट होगी अंडर सेक्शन 193. आपका अलग प्रोसिक्यूशन शुरू हो जाएगा उसमें. Section 228 of IPC contains penal provisions for intentionally insulting or interrupting the officer sitting in summons proceedings. या तो आपने थप्पड़ मार दिया, गाली दे दी, या तो उसको बोल दिया मैं नहीं दूंगा, इंसल्ट कर दिया, उसको इंटरप्ट कर दिया ऑफिसर को, तो 228 में आपको प्रोसिक्यूट कर सकते हैं फॉर इंटरप्टिंग द पब्लिक सर्वेंट. These provisions of IPC can be invoked where the person summoned under GST Act gives false evidence or interrupts the proceedings under summons. CBC has issued guidelines to ensure the summons provisions are not misused in the field. CBC ने कुछ guidelines भी issue किए हैं इसके लिए. Now we are coming to the next topic, which is adjudication and appeals under GST. इससे पहले वाले टॉपिक में कोई डाउट्स हैं किसी के तो पूछ सकते हैं. Should I move on?
सर दो क्वेरीज आई हैं.
हाँ जी बोलिए.
The first one is on Diwali season, GST officers come to premises for stock verification. Can they come without any authorization?
नहीं भाई, ऑथराइजेशन के बिना आएंगे तो आप मत अलो करिए उनको.
And the second one is if goods is perishable and expire date held in seize period, goods expire during period of seize, then who will be responsible for the loss?
It's a very interesting question. Normally तो ऐसे एक्सपायरेबल गुड्स को डिपार्टमेंटल ऑफिसर्स सीज करते नहीं है, राइट. अगर कर भी लिया है, राइट, तो आपके पास रेमेडी होगी कि भैया आप जाके कमिश्नर को बताएंगे या कोर्ट को बोलेंगे भैया एक्सपायर होने वाला है 6 महीने वगैरह वगैरह है, राइट. सो ये भी देखा जाएगा व्हाट हैव यू डन टू मिटिगेट इट. आप 6 महीने तक कुछ बोले नहीं, एक्सपायर होने दिया, कुछ किया भी नहीं, उसके बाद कौन रिस्पॉन्सिबल है. सो डिपार्टमेंटल ऑफिसर इज नॉट सपोज्ड टू लुक एट डेट ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चर ऑन ऑल द गुड्स. सो if you're vigilant enough, in spite of your request, if you're not able to get the goods released, then you can make the officer accountable. And courts have in the past, I've seen many cases where courts have taken the cost from the officers concerned कि भैया आपने उनका request भी आया, आपने release भी नहीं किया, तो आपको देना पड़ेगा, भरना पड़ेगा. तो officers are also very careful with respect to perishable and expiry goods these days. So therefore you need to be vigilant. You can't be silent and expect the law to protect you. If you are vigilant, then the law will protect you. If you're not vigilant, then you will be the sufferer. अगर हो गए तो हो गए, मतलब डिपार्टमेंटल ऑफिसर cannot be expected to look at the entire truckload and see कि कौन सा एक्सपायर हो रहा है कौन सा नहीं हो रहा है. आपको करना पड़ेगा, आपके पास रिकॉर्ड होगा ही ना. Am I clear?
Clear sir.
Yeah, next question.
अभी so far so good sir. You can continue okay. Please.
Okay. What is adjudication? अभी एक क्वेश्चन आया था बीच में कि what is the distinction between assessment and adjudication. Assessment को मैंने explain किया था, अब मैं adjudication को मैं define कर रहा हूँ. Cambridge dictionary जो है, which is a very famous English dictionary, it says adjudication means to act as judge in a competition or agreement or to make a formal decision about something. So whenever there is a formal decision required under a statute, either by a tribunal or by an officer or quasi-judicial authority or a judicial authority, that method is called adjudication. Adjudication means looking at the evidence, allowing people to argue, present witnesses, cross-examine, right? It's the entire proceedings adjudication. So judge जो बैठा है अपने आप को satisfy करेगा through the process of adjudication, and then he'll give a decision. So the entire process from issuance of show cause notice to passing of order is called adjudication. It's a legal process of resolving a lis. Lis means dispute in Latin. A legal process of resolving a lis or a dispute between taxpayer and the department. The one who adjudicates is called the adjudicating authority. जो कमिश्नर शो कॉज नोटिस इश्यू करता है उसको कई बार हम adjudicating authority भी बोलते हैं. Issue of adjudication order is known as order original. तो normally जो order आता है सबसे पहला order होता है, and we normally call it as order in original. What is an appeal? Any appeal under any law, whether tax law or any other law, is an application to a higher court in case SSC is agreed by the order of the lower authority or appellate authority or tribunal. Appeals arise where there are any legal disputes. So therefore, जब आपके खिलाफ कोई order आती है, तो next step जो लिया जाता है उसको appeal कहते हैं, simple words, right? So adjudication is not an appeal proceeding. Appeal proceeding always starts when the adjudication proceeding ends after the passing of the order. Okay. Appeal provisions under GST. First is an order passed by the adjudicating authority, which is order in original. Then the appellate authority, which is Commissioner Appeals, Section 107 के अंदर. Orders of Commissioner Appeal are applicable to appellate tribunal under Section 112. Appellate tribunal के जो orders हैं, High Court को जाता है Section 117 में, High Court का Supreme Court में 118 में. Some appeals can be directly filed from appellate tribunal to Supreme Court also. We'll see that in the next slides. Timelines for filing appeals under GST. Before the appellate authority, 3 months from the date of receipt of the order passed by the adjudicating authority. So first appellate authority, Commissioner Appeals के पास अगर आपने appeal file करनी है, तो 3 महीने का time है आपको order in original receive करने के बाद. Before the appellate tribunal, 3 months from the date of receipt of the order passed by the appellate authority, right? So आपको 3 महीने मिलते tribunal में जाने के लिए भी, Commissioner Appeals से. Then before High Court, 180 days from the date of receipt of the order passed by the appellate tribunal. So tribunal ने जब order pass किया, 6 महीने का period होता है आपको appeal के लिए. Yes, somebody was saying something. I'm continuing. And before the apex court means Supreme Court. Immediately after passing of the judgment or order, the High Court certifies to be a fit one for appeal to Supreme Court. GST के अंदर ये provision है कि High Court पहले certify करेगा कि ये case appellable है नहीं है, उसके बाद Supreme Court जाओगे. A direct appeal shall also lie to Supreme Court from any orders passed by national or regional bench of the tribunal. So direct appeal is possible. Thank you. Now the floor is open for more questions if there are.
Okay.
ये stop share कर दूं मैं?
सर एक क्वेश्चन आया है हमारे कुलदीप जी से. I am reading it. If I am a government service provider and government department is not paying bills in time, delay is more than 6 months, and we in turn we are stopped from paying GST in time. So what are the liabilities to the company and director?
You are the service provider but a government company, and you are providing services to another government department which is not paying bills in time.
Yes.
Right? You are saying what will happen to the director? In my respectful submission, what you need to do is you need to give that particular information to them that look, if you're not paying tax, my credit would be reversed because aapka before the audit and all you become responsible. So therefore you need to agitate your issues before the customer and send appropriate communications. If you have a legal department, you should have a completely worked out program. Your internal and legal department sends a mailer that look, this is payment is due for so long. The payment terms were so and so. It was 180 days or 90 days or whatever, right? It is beyond the time period, right? It is 30 days or 45 days, whatever. And if you are not paying, then we have no option but to report the matter to the GST department. 3 महीने के अंदर वो करोगे, फिर 4 साढ़े 4 महीने के अंदर आप GST डिपार्टमेंट को लिखोगे, उसके बाद उनके बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स को लिखोगे, कुछ हमको इस तरह का स्टेप्स लेना पड़ेगा सो दैट द ऑफिसर, आपके डायरेक्टर को अपना बचाव के लिए कुछ होगा कि भाई आई हैव डन XYZ थिंग्स एंड वी हैव अ प्रॉपर प्रोसीजर फॉर दिस एंड वी फॉलोड इट। गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट आपका विजिलेंस का और CAG का उनका प्रेशर ज्यादा होता है। प्राइवेट में तो कोई बात नहीं, लाला को आपको रिप्लाई करना है, राइट? बट इन गवर्नमेंट यू हैव सो मेनी अदर entities which are outside the government, audit entities and vigilance entities. कभी CBI भी involve हो जाता है कि भाई कहीं ये है, but then since there is no corruption involved, so therefore to that extent it is a little lesser serious offense, and there are two different pockets of the same government. Those are arguments which you can take later on, but as a officer who's conscientious and you intend to do your job properly, you should have a standard operating procedure for all these situations. Am I able to answer?
Yes.
Kuldeep ji, clear?
Yes, sir.
Haji. Any other question?
It seems there are no other questions. Kuldeep ji had added one line. He said, what if we are as MSME?
Yeah. What if you are an MSME? MSME में आपके पास वो option भी है under MSME Act, because वो 45 days का कुछ provision है. If you don't get it, you start getting interest. But then the GST provisions are the same whether you are MSME or large enterprise. आपको 6 months के अंदर आपके पैसे वापस नहीं आए तो आपका credit आपका cancel हो जाएगा. Because now it's all under GSTN, आपको कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है, डिपार्टमेंट अपने आप रिवर्स कर देगा वो. Then it becomes a contractual issue between you and your customer. आपको कोर्ट में आपको रिकवरी डालनी पड़ेगी या कुछ और करना पड़ेगा कि भाई मैंने गुड्स भी चला गया, मैंने टैक्स भी पे कर दिया और आपसे रिकवरी नहीं हुई.
Any more questions? हेलो
निकेत जी, लग रहा है और कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है आज, बट हमारे साथ राकेश जी जुड़ गए हैं. राकेश सर.
गुड इवनिंग राकेश जी.
Good evening sir, for this wonderful presentation.
I am so grateful sir, your kind words are encouraging.
Sorry, I got little delayed.
No problem. We got to know.
मैंने एक्चुअली में उसमें मेरी गलती थी, मैंने गलत वो भेज दिया था कोऑर्डिनेट्स.
I didn't want to say that. वो हो जाता है कई बार.
No problem.
But one thing, Kotne sahab, this GST provision, it's a wonderful thing. I think from day one, and we have been advocating even at least half a decade prior to its actual billing and introduction and everything. But somehow, even after so many years also, we are still struggling to have even our proper accounts book. First it is implementation and then demonetization, then ultimately now it is the mother of all issues where COVID-19 is there.
Right, sir.
Now it's a huge problem how to operate. Nobody is basically thinking about GST.
At least till June, they have given so many other compliances. So finance minister that, but June के बाद आपको करना ही पड़ेगा. And sir, ये problem है.
Just before it was just going to stabilize, this COVID-19 has come. So even though it's what we call it a good and simple tax, but somehow it has become an headache from day one. Maybe it has some bad stars during those introductions.
No, sir, I mean, I'll tell you what is my take on this. India is a huge country. You have humongous number of taxpayers, and there's an umpteen number of transactions, billions of transactions happening every day. And the system, what they did wrong was that without testing the system, without constructing it and then implementing it, they just rushed it all of a sudden. So therefore, so many things, because even now they're keeping on delaying the extending times, etc., for various returns and things like that. And there are so many teething issues happening in spite of Infosys happening, working day and night, and so many states involved. Stakeholders भी बहुत ज़्यादा है. Departmental officers हैं, state के officers हैं, central के officers हैं, state governments हैं, central government है, CBIC है, right? एजुकेशन मैकेनिज्म है, आपके असेसमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं, ऑडिट डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं, सबको एक ही टूल दे रखा है, राइट? एंड उसका पीछे जो उसका न्यूरल नेटवर्क है, कलेक्शन ऑफ टैक्सेस आल्सो ऑनलाइन, नाउ यू हैव टू अपलिंक द इनवॉइसेस आल्सो, देन आपका मैचिंग कॉन्सेप्ट है। तो ये सब मतलब बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है, बट आई एम श्योर ये टाइम लगेगा, लेकिन हम सब सफर करेंगे कुछ महीने, कुछ साल, लेकिन at some point of time it will get fine tuned and ठीक हो जाएगा, because any big reform when it comes तो वो ये सब तो होगा ही सर। ये था कि ये प्रिपरेशन कम थी, लेकिन ऐसा भी है कि प्रिपरेशन जितना भी करो ये इश्यूज तो होंगे।
No, you are very right, because ultimately after these situations, government will be needing revenue, and it's going to be a catch-22 situation. And as a professional, definitely we like to understand, and we will also advocate for better compliances, because that is how smoothness in the economy will come. And I think everyone is just waiting for things to be happen. And it's good that once again we are reaching and such an important topic with such a nice deliberation has happened. All credit goes to Aniket and the team.
Sir, I hope
And
that
they are
everybody
picking up very
understood
good
what I
order.
said.
Yeah. It's a beautiful presentation. After a long time, I'm back to this.
Thank you,
Beautiful
sir.
presentation.
Thank you for your kind word.
Thank you.
Courtney sir, there are few queries in the chat box. Are you able to access the chat box?
Yeah, just a minute, sir. Notification number 2 of 2019 has now been incorporated in the GST Act and the section 10(2) of the GST Act 2017. ये एक query है, नहीं ऊपर भी है कुछ queries. कुलदीप कौशिक जी, कॉन्वेंट वाला तो हो गया सर, एक छोटा सा कंफ्यूजन है। कॉम्पोजिशन लेवी अंडर जीएसटी कवर्ड बाय सेक्शन 10 फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग, नोटिफिकेशन 2 of 2019 rate wherein first time services included second tax rate as 3+3, section 10(2) inserted by Finance Act 2019 tax rate 3+3, और we have three versions of composition levy. एक ही वर्जन है कॉम्पोजिशन लेवी का, अमेंडमेंट हुआ है बस। This is for small taxpayers under section 10. कुछ सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स को उन्होंने इंक्लूड किया है, पहले जो नहीं कवर्ड थे, राइट? पहले तो सिर्फ वो ट्रेडर्स कवर्ड थे, and it was 2+2 I think when they introduced, then they made it to 3+3, right? They need not maintain any records for input tax credit and things like that, and they can just pay the composition rate and get done away with that. So it is to help small operators up to 1.5 crores I think turnover. Then Vidya Khanna ji, notification so has now been incorporated in the GST. Yes, you are commenting on the earlier question. Prashum said, in RCM concept, is it necessary to mention GST amount in invoice if SAC code is for legal services? No, not required, because if it's a reverse charge mechanism, as a lawyer, you are not supposed to be registered. You're not supposed to be aware of it also. So आप सिर्फ एक कमेंट लिख दीजिए कि ये जो लीगल सर्विसेज हैं, जो भी सर्विसेज RCM के अंदर हैं, these are covered under RCM, so the responsibility of paying tax is under the recipient. ये एक लेजेंड अगर लिख देंगे आप इनवॉइस में, लिखने की जरूरत भी नहीं है, वैसे लिख देंगे तो इट्स लाइक बाय अबंडेंट प्रिकॉशन यू कैन डू इट, लेकिन जीएसटी अमाउंट लिखने की बिल्कुल जरूरत नहीं है, बिल्कुल ना लिखिए, इनफैक्ट लिखेंगे तो प्रॉब्लम है। आई एम क्लियर प्रशून जी? देन कुलदीप कौशिक जी, if GST department freezes GST number registration due to non-paying GST more than 6 months, what is the process to activate GST registration? सर आपको अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा फिर से, पहले तो आपने जिस वजह से आपका फ्रीज किया है, राइट, वो ठीक करना पड़ेगा, टैक्स पेमेंट करनी पड़ेगी, फिर एप्लीकेशन डालना पड़ेगा, ऑनलाइन ही है, फॉर्म्स हैं उसके लिए भी, तो फिर आपका इसको खुलवाना पड़ेगा, आपका धंधा इफेक्ट होगा इसके वजह से। कुलदीप कौशिक जी, एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस?
No, sir. और कोई क्वेश्चन तो नहीं है।
I think there are no more questions, sir. It has time to wrap up the session.
Thank you so much. And the questions can come later on also. You can send the questions to Aniket ji. He can forward it to me. I can answer. और मेरा नंबर ले लीजिए, मैं टाइप कर देता हूँ इसमें, तो आप कभी भी कोई भी क्वेश्चन हो, या तो आप फोन कर सकते हैं या तो ईमेल कर सकते हैं। चैट बॉक्स में मैंने भी डाल दिया है। नहीं, मैंने प्राइवेटली डाला मेरे ख्याल से। नहीं,
आपने सर प्राइवेटली डाला है।
1 मिनट में इसको एवरीवन कनेक्टेड।
अनिकेत जी, ये एक तो ये टेलीफोन नंबर और ईमेल जो है ये दोनों ही सर्कुलेट कर दीजिए उनको, and whenever there is anything, or they can also approach EBCC directly also.
Yeah, definitely, sir.
So now time has come to wrap up the session.
Thank you so much.
In the end, sir, I will like to thank you for this enlightening lecture. There are lots of things we all learned, and in the end, since Rakesh sir joined late, it was my fault. If he can say a few words to all the attendees, it will be very good, sir.
While thanking Courtney Saab, I've already said that
Thank you, sir.
all the participants are there, and they are very learned participants. What as an EBCC, all of you must be aware, this is a chamber what was created to serve the small and medium enterprises. And now it is spreading its wings, and now it's the whole idea is that we might just get educated to post-COVID also, because it's a good time, because we have got some spare time to study, and the team is consolidating on every of the issues on a day-to-day working, so that all of us can be clear, because immediately after lifting of the lockdown, possibility of moving into and doing the work will come. All the requirements will be there, and the whole idea is we'll be there to back you up as in chamber. But most important part is that it should be participative, and questioning should be from your side, because on all these subjects, whatever and wherever we are getting getting it covered, the response is really wonderful. But it's not possible without your support and contribution. And what we have been always trying to impress upon is the kindly suggest us the topics also. If you can suggest the topics, the issues, what we will be covering up in coming days, that will be a wonderful thing, and all of us will be educated. So it's so nice to have all of you in this program, and I hope and expect that you will continue to be part of this initiative. Thank you so much to all of you for being part of this initiative of our chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Now I'm just closing the meeting. Thank you.